The sweltering Texas heat beat down on the highway like a molten wave, shimmering over the desolate landscape. I, Jeff, was behind the wheel of my trusty gray Toyota, cruising towards Crystal City, swallowing dust and cursing the endless road. Suddenly, two mangled cars appeared on the shoulder, their metallic bodies bearing the scars of a recent battle. Beside them stood a grizzled man, his hair as white as the driven snow, a thick mustache framing his weathered face. He was dragging something wrapped in a white sheet across the road. A crimson trail, like the lifeblood of a wounded beast, stretched from the shrouded object, staining the asphalt. The man, his eyes clouded and vacant, cast a chilling gaze upon me, sending a shiver down my spine. I don't know what it was. I don't know where he was taking it. But fear, icy and suffocating, gripped my heart. Without a second thought, I slammed on the gas pedal, and the Toyota surged forward, leaving behind the nightmarish apparition. 2 hours had passed since my abrupt departure from the gruesome scene on the highway. I was parched, my throat as dry as the desert landscape that stretched before me. A beacon of hope emerged in the distance, a gas station with a convenience store. I pulled over, eager to quench my thirst and escape the oppressive heat. After gulping down a bottle of water, I headed towards the restroom, my bladder protesting. As I settled into a stall, the sound of the door opening echoed through the small space. I flushed the toilet, breaking the unsettling stillness, and emerged from my cubicle. There, standing beside the sink, was the man from the highway, the one with the grizzled white hair and thick mustache. His gaze was fixed on me, his eyes burning with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. He raised his index finger to his lips, a silent plea for secrecy. I nodded, understanding his unspoken request. The tension in the room was palpable, the air heavy with unspoken dread. Without a word, the man turned to the sink and began washing his hands, his movements methodical and deliberate. I watched him, my heart pounding in my chest, a mix of fear and curiosity coursing through my veins. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the man in the mirror. He was no longer washing his hands, but instead, his gaze was fixed on me, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. I rushed out of the restroom, my mind racing with questions. What was he doing here? Why did he want me to keep his secret? I jumped into my car. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, I caught a final glimpse of the man standing by the restroom, his silhouette stark against the setting sun. He raised his hand in a wave, a farewell gesture that sent a chill down my spine. I continued my journey to Crystal City, the image of the man's haunting gaze burned into my memory. As darkness descended, I decided to seek refuge for the night in a motel that appeared along the roadside. The motel was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of old carpet and stale air conditioning. A woman with tired eyes and a weary smile greeted me from behind the reception desk, handing me the keys to room number 8. The room was small and Spartan, furnished with a bed, a dresser, and a flickering television. I tried to relax, to shake off the unsettling feeling that had been plaguing me since my encounter with the man on the highway. But sleep eluded me, my mind replaying the events of the day over and over again. Unable to bear the confines of my room any longer, I decided to step outside for some fresh air. Before I could open the door fully, my heart thudded and a weight appeared in my chest. There, standing in the hallway, was the man from the highway, the one with the grizzled white hair and thick mustache. His eyes, cold and piercing, met my gaze, sending a wave of terror coursing through my veins. Without a word, the man turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing eerily down the corridor. I watched him go, my mind reeling with fear. What did the man want? Was he following me? The rest of the night passed in a blur of fear and paranoia. I barely slept, my eyes darting around the room, every creak and groan of the old motel amplifying my anxiety. As dawn broke, casting a pale light through the window, I knew I couldn't stay any longer. I slipped out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest, and made my way to the parking lot. Before getting into my car, I instinctively glanced at the back seat, half expecting to see the man with the mustache lurking there. But the car was empty, the silence broken only by the chirping of birds. With a trembling hand, I started the engine and sped away, leaving the motel in the rearview mirror. 3 hours had passed in a flash, and I was already ravenous. Spotting a roadside diner, I pulled over without hesitation. Inside, the typical atmosphere of such establishments prevailed. The aroma of fried food, the low hum of voices, and the flickering television above the counter. A few people sat at the tables, a family with children and an elderly man reading a newspaper. I sat down at an empty table and ordered a burger and Coke. I couldn't help but notice the news broadcast on the television. The anchor was reporting on the search for a dangerous criminal, a man with gray hair and a thick mustache. He was suspected of kidnapping 2 people. I almost choked on my burger. The games were over, flashed through my mind. Without a second thought, I dialed the police. The operator, after listening to me, informed me that the sheriff was already on his way and asked me not to leave the diner. Returning to my table, I couldn't help but glance at the elderly man, and I froze. It was him, the same gray-haired man with the mustache. Only he had shaved off his mustache and gone completely bald. It was impossible to mistake that piercing, icy stare. In a panic, I knocked over the table, hitting the plates of food, and rushed towards the exit. At that moment, a police car pulled up to the diner. I ran outside and yelled to the sheriff that the criminal was inside. The sheriff and his deputy rushed inside without hesitation. But when they burst in, it was too late. The man had vanished. "He was here," I exclaimed, trembling with fear. "I saw him." The sheriff frowned and called over his shoulder to his deputy, "Check everything around, don't miss a single detail." The deputy nodded and rushed off to carry out the order, and the sheriff approached me and, placing a hand on my shoulder, said, "Tell me everything you saw. Don't hold back anything." I spent a long time giving a statement to the police that day. I recounted everything I remembered, down to the smallest detail. But the search for the suspect with the icy stare yielded no results. He had seemingly vanished into thin air. How could he have disappeared so quickly? And what did he want from me? Months have passed since then. I try not to think about those events, but they still haunt my dreams. Sometimes I think I see his piercing gaze and creepy smirk again. I don't know how this story ended for that man, but I believe that justice will catch up with him sooner or later.